Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham, and I am joined with my co-host Luke Timmons with me here tonight, and we have a exciting episode for you guys tonight. This is another fun one where we're kind of diving a little bit more back into Scripture, and our topic that we're going to go through is why God meets men alone. So, Luke, how are we doing tonight?
Good. Doing good, man. How are you?
Living the dream. We're here. We're recording. We're one episode. I said it last time. We're one more episode closer to 100, which is wild.
Wild faith.
It's, and I know the last one was kind of fun because we got a chance to kind of BS a little bit, but it's kind of weird timing with when that one dropped, and, where we're at now is because we were talking about it earlier today, but the RAM for Kuyu. Oh, dang it. Is it? It's not Kuyu.
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to start that one over. The RAM for Kuyu got stolen.
Yeah. Crazy. I thought honestly when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is an AI.
I thought it was fake.
Yeah, I thought they were like just messing around with something like, nope, somebody, I don't know. This world is something.
It's wild.
Just like some kind of stupid. That's what that was. So,
but the thing that blew my mind is like the guys, they showed up in like a caddy or some type of like, maybe it was a Charger or something, like a vehicle. You wouldn't load a giant 6-foot RAM, golden or bronze RAM into a car, and then they get like a dolly to grab it.
I mean, like, what do you do with that? I mean, you can, what I mean? Like,
but they cut it off at a weird, they didn't even like get the hooves. They cut it like at like the knees. So it's like, what the hell do you do with it?
Nothing. Because like the second you start showing it off, everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, Jimmy down the road's got this giant bronze RAM.
Where do you get that?
Anyways, craziness. It is.
But so I just want to kick off this pod with a little bit of scripture here, and I know we've talked about this one, and this is a really good one. This is Psalm 46:10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." And I think this really kind of puts us in a good place of where we're going to kind of dive into this stuff. We're going to go into a little bit of the story of Moses and his 40 years out in the wilderness and talking just how we kind of get grounded through God out in nature. But first one I want to ask you, just tell me a little bit of, why do most men avoid being quiet and just because I feel like it exposes a little bit of like what we've kind of got going inside. So maybe just tell me a little bit more from maybe your side of the story, just or generally, or whatever you think for that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just like the stubbornness of us is like the silence just kind of forces you to sit and think about what you've been avoiding, like whether that's out in a tree stand or even just at like going to the weight room or something, it's just
long car rides.
Yeah. The Ely and back. Yeah. But no, it just forces you to like deal with the things that you've been putting off, and that can be tough and scary, whether it's whatever, regret, fear, doubt, and those things start to get loud when everything else is quiet, so I think, that's, I think why most, men would avoid the quiet, because it just exposes what's going on the inside.
Do you feel like, now that we've gotten a little bit older, I feel like the distractions that we have in life are a little bit different, but I think that's a big one of why we struggle, not ourselves, but just like our general age group. I think there's just so much going on in our lives between being parents, working full-time jobs, the internet, social media. I think there's plenty of noise that surrounds us that keeps us away from that, and it's like those moments that we do get the chance to sit in that silence is where we kind of meet, and it kind of goes hand in hand of kind of what we're talking about now. But why do you think God removes distractions before kind of giving direction for him?
Because because like the like you were talking about, like all the distractions in your life tend to just in a sense, lie to you, where they may make us, what am I trying to say here? They make us, like distractions make us feel kind of productive in a sense of like, like with work, like I got to get this done, or stuff with the pod. It's like, okay, we're going to get this, and this done. And, the grind sets in. And so like when all that noise is gone, there's again, kind of like what that uncomfortable feeling gets to be is, there's nowhere to hide from what's the truth and what's going on in between the years and what's going on with your life. And so I don't think God's in the business of competing for attention. And so he's going to wait until things are quiet. And that's when, that direction can kind of come in, I think, a little bit, or, where he kind of forces your hand to think about, or, reflect or pray about, just, those kinds of things. When you remove all the noise, that's I think when at least I know I do feel a lot closer to God and have that ability to kind of just like take that sigh of relief and just like be intentional, right?
Do you think God puts us in situations that I just think of like some of maybe like not the heartaches, but like those trying times of where it's like, you're having a bad day, cars broke down the side of the road, something goes haywire to where it's like, you remove yourself from your to-do list, or you get removed from whatever crazy situation it was. Do you think God intentionally puts himself into those situations to make that happen for us, to have kind of that bigger reflection of like, oh, that was not important, this is what's important?
In a sense, I think he gives us the opportunity to do that, whether we decide to or not, as goes back to that whole free will piece. Is, with anything that happens in your life, even if it seems minuscule and small and not important at the time, like you still have that opportunity to connect with him and just, pray and reflect and do all that stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to think of some times for myself. I mean, like it's an interesting topic, because I just feel like there's been circumstances that I've had in my life where it's kind of put me, kind of in that position of where it's basically just eliminated all the distractions around me. And I don't know if that's intentionally from him or if that's just a coincidence or what it is, where he makes you, but like you just said, I mean, you kind of have that free will to choose of either taking that moment to thank him, or, ask for help, or to just enjoy that moment with him, compared to, doing something else or looking at your phone or whatever it is. But do you have, oh gosh, do you feel like you've got a season in your life where you just felt empty, but later on, like it kind of just made sense to why that situation might have happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of one off the cuff here, but I think it's most of those situations that come up where, it may feel like nothing's going right, nothing's moving in the right direction. And, those are the times where I think God's trying to strip some of that out and just, whether that's pride or hustle and, hurrying through life, or just try to be more, self-reliant and not relying on him. And so I think, looking back on just life, I guess, in general, like there's, that emptiness or whatever you want to call it, wasn't necessarily absence. We've said it a million times on here, like the Billy Graham sermon about those times when, God's probably the closest to you, and he's just, it's him trying to figure out, or not him trying to figure out, that's the wrong way to put it, but like him putting you in that situation, or giving you that opportunity to work with him, and that's the space that he needs to work too. So I think, at the end of the day, like those, looking back, that's where it starts to make sense, is, hindsight's always 20/20, but it's hard, every challenge has got its own unique thing. And so it's, and then, you know, with, like you said earlier, like with work and with kids and everything else, it's just, it's hard to be, you know, I think it's hard to like not become focused on the busyness of life and be intentional and like not fly off the cuff when something goes haywire or something like that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like, I think it's hard. I think it's hard to sit in silence, really.
Yeah.
I think that takes time and patience to appreciate those moments in silence, but it is hard. It's like when you're in a space of just chaos in your own mind and the busyness of life, of like where you do get those moments of silence. Mm-hmm. It's like you almost need a couple minutes to yourself to think. But it's like I struggle with it where it's like I've got 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be throughout a day of where it's just like, okay, there's nothing going on. And what am I going to do? I'm going to look at my phone.
Yeah, I was just literally thinking the same thing.
And it's like, man, what a disadvantage,
waste.
Or not disadvantage, what a waste of time. And I know we've talked about it on the podcast here before too, but it's like when we talk about like deer hunting and stuff like that, where it's like, what a golden teed up ball to hit when you're sitting out there by yourself. And it's like, you know, it's fun when you can sit out with a buddy and you can shoot the shit and talk and stuff. But it's like when you get out there and it's quiet and it's calm, there's nothing else going on. You're waiting for the woods to wake up and you just sit on your phone.
Yep.
It's like, man, I wish I could get that moment back, because it's like you can just hear it in the back of your head where he's just calling out, just saying like, hey, I'm here.
Yep, just waiting. Right. Yeah, dude. There's too many distractions in life, right? And we all fall trapped to those things, but you know, just trying to stack up more good than bad or good than not so great, you know, kind of those things where it's hard.
It is hard. I mean, so we wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of Moses's time wandering through the desert after they left Egypt. You know, in Acts 7:30, it says Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God spoke to him. And we were kind of pondering how to break that down and answer that question before we jumped on here. But like, in your own thoughts, and I'll give mine too, but like, what do you think? Did Moses have a bunch of distractions while he was waiting to hear God in that time?
Well, I think, yeah, I know. I was literally thinking about them, like, how are we going to swing this one? But I think, like, you know, I think Moses was ready, like, in terms of like a leadership skill long before he was ever ready, like in spirit, right? Like Egypt, and you know, when he was in Egypt, that taught him leadership, but you know, like the wilderness taught him the humility that he needed to be, you know, ready to lead, you know, the Israelites and stuff. So I think obviously God wasn't in a hurry. He waited 40 years, you know, before, but he was building Moses. He was building the man who isn't going to take credit for what God was about to do. And so, you know, 40 years turned Moses, you know, from kind of a hothead into a shepherd, you know? And so
breaking a bronco.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good one. You know, and so like we talked a little earlier, it's just God waits, you know, until that arrogance or that pride or whatever that is gone before, you know, he's ready to, I mean, he's always ready to teach you something, but I think he also has to break the bronco before you're ready, you know?
That's a good one. It's crazy to think, and I think about this now that I kind of just started Bible in a Year again, and then I started reading the Bible through the Bible app, just kind of at my own pace from scratch. And I'm still way at the beginning, but I just remember the first time that
January 14th.
I just remember the first time I went through and did that, reading about Moses and his time. And like you're talking about him just kind of being a hothead and going through basically what he did, liberating the Jews from Egypt and getting them out of there and stuff, where it's like, the timetable that exists in the Bible, from how old people were to 40 years wandering the desert. Like, I have a hard time fathoming that, because it's like, I think of me where it's like, I struggle sometimes to make it an hour or 15 minutes.
And it's like, in perspective.
It's just amazing how God, though, and how mighty of a man Moses was, but like how God has a plan for all of us, but we kind of just have to be willing to accept that and be willing to show up and have that faith to take that on, no matter the timetable of what it is, and I'm sure going through all that, Moses was not perfect, because you think of all of the different instances that happened with the people bickering and complaining, and the bread and the famine that they had and all that stuff, where it's like he would show up, address a problem. He worked on his leadership, like you talked about. He kind of had to get that humility to go through all that to become who Moses really was at the end.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I don't know. Do you think God does that intentionally for us to just reshape us? Like, even through not just time, but through just trials?
Oh, right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, it just goes back to the thing you said with, it's got to break the Bronco. Like, you have to be willing to just slow down and just accept things. And I feel like a lot of the reasons we give for not doing so are complete, BS. But in our own, our own, it's kind of, and it's probably, it's the devil working in our own head, but it's, the mind is sometimes your own worst enemy, where, I think of like working out or running, and that kind of sense of like, sometimes it's, you lay in bed for 20 minutes, like, do I really need to go to the gym? Can I just sleep in? It's just something silly as that, but it's like those, those are like teaching moments for yourself. And those are those moments that God's using you to, or working in your own life to say, like, this is going to suck. You don't want to do it, but you're going to get through it. We're going to get through it together.
How do you work on your, I don't want to say your faith, but like, once again, it's kind of back on like the timetable of Moses here, like just trying to imagine 40 years of silence. How do you go through? Because like, I feel like, I was actually talking about this kind of last night in my Bible study, and I've kind of felt this as of late. Like, I think of, when my dad passed about we're going to be 5 years this fall now. And I would say that first 2 years of going through RCA, going through the church, getting confirmed, that was like, I think our first year. No, was that our first year we started the podcast? But like, I would say like my heart was on fire, and it was like the closest that I have ever felt. Like I can't even describe that feeling of just being like almost on like cloud 9 from a just connection level with my relationship with the Lord. And I kind of felt like I've kind of been going through the wilderness these last, probably, I don't know, last year maybe, of where it's just like I'm reaching for that and striving for that, but I just don't feel like it's there yet. And I feel like I've been tested with that, and I don't want to say I've failed, but I'm doing my best at that. But like, how would you frame that? Like, what does a man have to do to be faithful in times where he doesn't feel the Lord?
Just keep showing up. That whole intentionality thing. Even when you feel like you're completely, even though when you feel like you're completely alone, or you feel like you have no one to turn to, or you're just screwing up every opportunity you have to be able to, and I suck at this too, is just taking that couple minutes, and maybe like there was something you were doing before when you felt closer that you've let fall to the wayside, or let things get in the way, or it's just that you just keep showing up. It's hard. It's it's the same as like I look at it as the same as us with our kids. Like, you just gonna quit? Just be like,
make your own supper.
Yeah, do your own thing. So it's like you have to be able to put everything into perspective, and it's really hard sometimes, and it's gonna suck, and it's gonna, there's gonna be days, weeks, months, even a year, like, or years where you may feel that way, and you just gotta keep grinding, I guess is the only way I could put it. And and I think there's, like you said, there's like peaks and valleys, I feel like, and where you do feel close and you don't feel close, and you feel alone, right? But it's part of life, I guess.
And I think with that too, I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to say community aspect, but I think that, we talk about, I think that, basically the title of it was just being alone with God. But I think also too, I think part of that is having that ability to do what we're doing right now, talking with other people and just exploring that faith and understanding that, like, exactly what you said. So I thank you. I needed that. but like understanding that it's just not you going through this too. Other people are going through the same struggle, same journey. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand too. Like, I think about, we were talking about humility earlier, but like, how does that shape you into becoming a good leader, a good dad? I think it's such a powerful word that, and it's a blessing from God. It really is and it's hard to do, but like, how do you get to the point like that of where you can accept that and get to a point where you just surrender?
I think it's a lifelong challenge, and I think, humility, like you said, like being a leader or being a good dad or whatever you're striving to be. Humility keeps power from becoming poison. It reminds you that the mission or whatever you're set out for isn't about you. It's about your family. It's about other people. It's about putting, it's servant leadership. It's putting others before yourself sometimes, or most of the time, really. And so I think, a humble man, a humble dad, a humble husband, listens and waits and obeys, God and in his direction, instead of trying to force an outcome. And so we're all guilty of it, right? So, I think leadership, and you see it everywhere. You see it at work, you see it in politics, you see it anytime you turn on the TV or do anything, like leadership without humility is just crushing. It's that whole thing too of like, that absolute power is going to corrupt absolutely. And so I think, leadership with humility is going to serve not only yourself better, but everyone else that you're interacting with or striving to serve.
Yeah. Did you say that prayer is the root to a good foundation in terms of discipline and just facets of life?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's kind of, I always feel like when I make like a analogy, it's completely wrong, but it's kind of like the old, that idea of like making your bed every morning. It's so easy. It's going to take you 30 seconds to do, a minute to do.
I'm not good at folding.
Well, all you gotta do is but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like something so simple and so quick to do are those things that for whatever reason we decide to not, thank God I have thank God I have an amazing wife, and keeps the house in check, because if it was just me, it'd be a pit,
Think of how we lived when we were bachelors living together.
Oh yeah, just disgusting.
It's chaos.
Just disgusting. I mean, dishes and smelling a shirt to make sure it doesn't stink before you put it on, kind of thing. But it's the same again. Like, it feels weird, comparing it to prayer, but it is the same sense of like, it takes you 30 seconds to do, and that's a long prayer if you think about it. And so it's just that foundation that can start your day off, or even if you didn't start it off that way, it's a good way to like reset during the middle of the day. Like when things aren't going right,
100%.
just take that 30 seconds, take that minute. And it's like, I feel like I need to go back and listen to myself on here all the time, because I, calling the kettle black a little bit there is where it's, do you dummy? You just said that's what you're supposed to do, and now you're not doing it, so I think, yeah, like in a long roundabout answer, yes.
Yeah, I think it goes in hand or in unison, where, like you said, I think it resets you. And I think it sets a precedence if you start your day with prayer, if you end your day with prayer. But even those middle of the day prayers, this is the whole point of this podcast, of like those moments of silence that we have, of taking advantage of that, of having prayer. I think it grounds you to a point of where whatever you're going to face next isn't that bad.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a powerful thing that we have literally at our fingertips. In your mind, you could say, you don't have to say a prayer out loud. You can say it quietly. You can do whatever you want. And it's just getting to a point where you build that callus of having a relationship with him, of where you can take those moments to have that conversation to get you through whatever's coming next. And it's not going to be that bad. Even if it is bad, you know that you've got somebody that's on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think about, I think it was Tony Robbins. I don't know if it was or not, but I'm going to go with him. But I think it was him who said something where, whatever, when you have those opportunities to put something off, where it's making your bed or it's doing the dishes or just some stupid thing, easy thing like that, just do it, because it's just going to build. You're just, okay, there's a win, there's a win, there's a win, there's a win. And you start stacking up these little wins. And then no matter what goes on through the day, be like, okay, well, this one thing at work went sideways, or wherever. I'm just going to use work for now. But like this one thing went sideways at work, but I already did 5 or 6 other things that are easy wins that make you feel just a little bit better, I think.
Yeah. I will say this is a really random one, but it correlates. Like for me, if I cook dinner and I do the dishes while I'm cooking dinner, and there's no dishes after dinner, there's no better feeling.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a huge one.
But yeah,
sure.
I mean, kind of moving along the timeline now, just talking about King David, and talk about a man of God's heart and a man that struggled, really. But
time.
He was always the kind of the apple of God's eye. And it's kind of interesting to kind of compare about that, because he didn't really necessarily have the same story as like Moses of being trapped in silence. But then again, he spent, his entire, childhood through adulthood with the Lord, and always reaching out to him. I think he was probably one of the biggest ones that took advantage of prayer, maybe because he was asking for forgiveness for a lot of the times. But it's like, that's all. I mean, all the Psalms that you can think of, I mean, those are just songs that he made praising the Lord. And I think that's one thing too, where it's like, if you struggle with prayer and you don't know what to pray about, you can always pray about being thankful for what you have, or thankful for that moment, or be thankful to be alive. I think just having moments of gratitude can only make your day better and make you feel better, because you feel grateful.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that's a good one to go back and just read about David. It is just all the bad things that he did, but at the same time, God knew what he was doing, and was molding the shepherd to become a king, right?
And I think with that though too, of where he's in one of the best examples in the Bible of someone who lived, I would say, almost a modern day man's life of struggles, but had such a relationship with the Lord, because I know we've talked about it on here so many times, but it's like, it's all God wants from us is to be friends with him. He let him be the father to us, and us to be the sons and daughters to him. And it's like, if we can have that intimate relationship with him like that, the sky is the limit. not saying that you can go out and do all the things that King David did, because those aren't good. But
maybe you could, right? You never know.
But like, there's what you think that you're doing in your life is bad, like having a relationship with the Lord and asking for forgiveness or giving glory to God. That's the only thing that he wants from us. And it's a simple act of just having a relationship with him. And I think he is I still think he's one of the best examples in the Bible of just being close.
So how do you think he did that? How even yourself, like, how do you look past your sin, your screw ups? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what we just talked about. I think you have to humility. I think you have to humble yourself to know that you are not all knowing. You're not the all being. You are nothing but a speck of sand on this earth. And once again, I think it's once you can understand that relationship with God, that he is the Father. He is your Father. Obviously, we have our humanly parents that are here on earth with us, our blood and flesh. But it's like I think once you can understand that relationship that we have with the Lord, that he is our Father, I think that just brings down that wall of where we have our pride. We're selfish. We have these thoughts in ourselves of where we can go through each day knowing that I have an agenda. I know what I want to do. I'm the man of the house if you're a dad or whatever it is, where it's like we have all these building blocks that we put together of where we pump ourselves up. But I think you got to be like a toddler and you got to knock those things down and understand it's like none of that matters. And I think I think that's where it's humbling enough, where it's like, if we can understand that he is the Father and we are the child, to where that relationship of knowing there's a comfort and a peace and an understanding of going to him with your problems or going to him with your thanks breaks down that barrier of not being humble and humbling yourself to where you can get on a level of that intimate conversation that you're going to have with the Lord. And then I think that's what, pleases him the most.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's something I always struggle with too, is sitting at the end of the day on the couch or whatever. And, we talked about the distractions and just the doom scrolling, but like those minutes or whatever you want to, whatever time length of where you're just sitting thinking. And that's where the woods, the outdoors is so therapeutic, because you can do that without the distractions. But that's, like speaking at the end of the day, where it's like, God, I fucked up every opportunity I had today. And, you get down on yourself, and that's, when, depression sets in. That's when all those other things sit in. But it is just, it's that whole.
I think that's the hardest part, is like when we get down on ourselves, because that's not God working. That is the devil full hand at work, trying to put those thoughts in your mind of saying, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, that's right, I didn't do this or do that or do this. And you kind of become a slave to it.
That's really good. I like that. What do you think, going on that, lessons of like solitude out in the outdoors, what do you think, what lesson would you say, or lessons solitude can teach us that the crowd or the busyness of life can never?
I think it's just getting back out in nature, man. There's something to, like, for me, like, I love a cool, crisp October morning, but I'm a sucker for turkey hunting. But it's like for me to go out a spring morning, because the woods has come to life. There's new life. There's new growth. There's new everything. And it's like you go out there, you start to hear the birds chirping. It's almost like there's a timer that's ticking out. If you get out there at the right time, if you're not late for your turkey hunt, you can get out there and enjoy it.
Right.
Of where it's like you can get out, there's nothing. It's quiet.
Right.
Especially if you're in an area where you're not surrounded by planes or cars, and we're talking just enough away of where it is quiet.
Yeah.
You can get out there and it's just you, yourself, and the silence. And then it's all of a sudden you start to hear the birds coming alive. You know, if there's frogs, you're by a swamp, you can hear the frogs start going off. And then all of a sudden more birds start going, then the turkeys start gobbling. And then the sun starts to come up, deer moving. And like you start to hear all these little micro sounds that you normally would not hear. And it almost, for me, every time it kind of grounds me to where it brings me back to like, oh, there's a bigger picture going on here. There's a bigger story going on here that I wouldn't be able to see or hear if I was distracted by my phone or whatever it is. Like I think of all those moments of where it's like you get surprised by a buck walking in the woods, or a doe, all of a sudden she's 2 inch, 5 feet from underneath your stand. It's like where did you come from? It's like, oh yeah, I was sitting on my phone, you know. Right. I didn't hear the little footsteps that she had coming through the woods. And I just think there's something, for me, it's always just that's been the big part of anywhere that I've traveled. But I think that's probably one that hits home for me the most, just because that's where I cut my teeth. That's where I grew up as a kid. That's where I found God as a kid, where it's like, I just appreciate that there's something bigger than me. And it's like little whispers, like when Moses was up on, Mount Sinai, waiting to hear stuff. And it's like, you're waiting to hear him through the rustles of the wind and stuff like that. And it's like, now you hear him in the silence, and it's like, that's where you have to be intentional to listen for that. And that's where that's my favorite place to break it open, my little pocket Bible and read,
Sure. Yeah. That's good. And that kind of goes right into the third guy we want to talk about, Elijah, with his whole story. And that's an interesting one too, because, he just secured, or however you want to put it, defeated the prophets of however you say it, Baal. You would think that he'd be ecstatic and, look what I did, look what I can do. But no, he ran off into the wilderness and just like was burnt out. And I think that's a key one to hit on, just with, burnout being such a mainstay in life nowadays, is to remember that, even the greatest stories in the Bible, they still face the same things that we face today. A little different with, technology and stuff, but it's the same vein of, you may have this huge, great win, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, no, that didn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm done. I'm just shot. So, I mean, when you think about that, why do you think, or what is God's response to Elijah teach us about burnout?
That's a really good one. I mean, you think of life, think of like, if you're a goal-oriented person, or if it's work or if it's life or whatever it is, like something that you've worked hard to get to, of where it's like, to your point, where it's like, think of all the people in the sports world that have won Super Bowls and done all these crazy things in their lives, or they did ultra marathon, whatever it is. It could be any of those facets of things, and they're never satisfied, and they're never happy. They keep chasing and chasing and chasing it, and they get burnt out on it. And it's just like anything in life, where it's like comparing that to the story and for us and nature and stuff, where it's like, what a blessing God gave us to be able to go out and enjoy creation and enjoy the solitude and silence and the restoration that you get from being out there, And I think through that silence, it might be 5 minutes, might be 10 minutes, might be 20 minutes of sitting in silence. But at some point in time, if you have faith and you believe in God, and even if you don't, maybe God will speak to you and you start talking with him in the moment of where he's just sitting there, like we said earlier, he's just sitting there waiting for you to hit that point of where it's like, okay, God's patient. I need to work on my patience. But it's like, you get to that point of sitting in that silence where finally it's like, okay, I'm good. And then proceed to give thanks, ask what's going on, talk to God, and then start that conversation with him, where it's like, that's the beauty of nature of where it's like you can get out and just have that chance to getting away from the hustle and bustle, the distractions, whatever is burning you out. Like there's nothing there that's going to sit there unless you're too locked into hunting. But like,
and that happens, right?
There's nothing that's out there that's going to distract you, and God's just patiently waiting for you to, extend that olive branch and have that conversation with him. But he's just going to wait there until you're ready.
So why do you think he often chooses to speak to us through a whisper rather than shouting?
Yeah, I know. It's because
I think it goes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I feel like with that, I think God he has a way to speak to each and every one of us that is individual to us. Because some people need to have the house burning down to get spoke to.
Sure.
And some people need to have that quiet whisper of where.
But do you think the house burning down forces you to look for the whisper? Like everything's been, not literally, maybe literally or figuratively, but, maybe the house burning down is just all the distractions in your life, just him getting rid of all that junk and all that crap. And then now it's like, now I can just talk to you, or you can talk to me.
Well, I think that's what we talked about earlier, of like where I think God does intentionally. I don't want to say, we talked about hard times. We've talked about on the podcast before too. And I think that's part of it, maybe, of where it's like, I think God puts us through those long seasons of where we have to go through whatever it is that we have to go through to humble ourselves, to get ourselves to a point where we're ready to talk to him. And I feel like, when we talk about getting spoken to in a whisper, where I think that's God's way of being gentle and being calm and knowing that we're ready to have that conversation with them. It's kind of like, think of when you're a kid, and I just think of my dad of where I just get my ass chewed for doing whatever the hell I did or broke it down. And then it would be about 25 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. I'd be sitting in my room, and then I'd just get a little knock on the door, and they'd come in and just talk very quiet, very calm, very just understanding, and just we would work through it,
Sure.
So I think, to your point, I think there is chaos sometimes, and I think God does do things to maybe get us out of a situation where we can't see and we got blinders on, and then waits for us to listen, and then speaks to us in the kind of that fatherly voice.
Yeah. I think that'd be not that you should ever question God, but that'd be one I would have. I think would be, and it makes me think of like that that scene in The Chosen, with Nathaniel and talking, and when he first meets Jesus, or when he's under the fig tree and he's just beside himself and sobbing, and he meets Jesus, and Jesus, goes, "I saw you even under the fig tree," and so those are those moments where you think the house is burning down, but God still sees you, and he's still trying to reach out to you in a sense. And so I think, that's one that I struggle with a little bit, as far as it would be nice just for here's your sign, like this is what, but that's not how he works out, and he's putting the ball in your court. He's giving you the opportunity to kind of sink or swim, I think.
Yeah. And I think, think of morality, think of he gave us free will, I think we have to kill ourselves figuratively to open ourselves to him, and we got to put ourselves last and put him first, and not until then can you have a relationship with him, and that's where I think it's just really hard that's a really good one, because it's like, think of someone he was ready to end it all, and it's like, that was a do or die type of moment for him. And God just spoke to him and whispered to him, and he just surrendered and gave in. And then, I mean, the rest is, you can go ahead and read it yourself. But it's that is a good one. I mean, there's a lot of those too, of where it's like someday we'll know.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, like you said, it's not like it's kind of like, hey, we're going to talk about Jesus next, so this is a good segue. But the fact that he talks about how we have to, turn away from ourselves in a sense, but turn away, from just everything and become like a child, or you'll never enter this. So he's not saying like you need to hurt yourself, you know what I mean? But it's more so like it's killing the pride, it's killing the need to be right, the illusion of control, and that is something that we are going to struggle with until we show up at the gates of heaven someday.
And I think it's a hard one too, where it's like, I mean, we talked a little bit about earlier, but like that's the hard thing with like depression and just that self-doubt we can build in our own minds, of where we just feel like we're not shaping up or we're not doing this. And it's hard for anybody, girl, boy, dad, wife, doesn't matter. Like I feel like we all go through that in our life. And I think the biggest thing with it all, and I mean, what is God or what is Jesus? He's love, and that's where it's like, I can't remember who was talking about this the other day, but I listened to it on a podcast, and I told Autumn it tonight, of where it's like, I don't think we can fathom the love that God has for us. And the analogy that the guy gave was basically like, like when you put your kid down to bed, you put him to sleep, and you just had a shit day, and maybe your kid was just a little shit or whatever it was,
100%.
But you put them in that bed and they're asleep, and you just look at them and you just watch them. And then like it just melts away. And it's like, I would do anything for that child. I love that child. Or the first time that you see your kid when they get brought into this world, it is just an unconditional love. And and I agree with the guy who's saying, I'm not stealing what he's saying, but I think that's how God looks at us every moment of our life. Doesn't matter how we messed up. Doesn't matter what we did. He's just sitting there with unconditional love in his heart for us, and just waiting, for us to open ourselves. But like you said, to get ourselves to that point of where we put down the shield of everything that's blinding us, and full heart, full willingness, accept him and surrender ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you kill the lie that you were your own savior, right? And then when that dies, I think our faith becomes simple again. It's like like our kid reaching up to us and trusting their father to carry them.
I think we're really good at making our relationship and faith extremely complicated.
Every day, yeah. very good at it.
Let's see how hard we can make this today.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That is very true. But yeah, I mean, we can probably just segue into the man of the hour, I guess, Jesus. Just him too. I mean, you just kind of go through all these great men in the Bible and look at all the things that they did, and how many times does God meet that man in the wild. And that's true for his own son, for Jesus, where he was in the wilderness and tempted by the devil, and for 40 days, I was thinking about that before we hopped on, and just trying to figure out the significance of 40, but I didn't get the chance to do that. So I want to do that one of these days. But
I know it's one of those, they talk about it a lot of, what is it? I might be coming up with a word here, but maybe it is a real word, but numerology, is that a word?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
I wanted to make sure it wasn't an evanism, but
there's always a chance.
But there is a lot that correlates in the Bible of, like, we think of numbers, and this is kind of an off cliff note, but like, I can't think of his name. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a couple of times. He's super factual.
Is that the younger guy?
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Wesley Huff, I think, right?
Yeah, Wesley Huff. He was talking about it basically of like how, if you have numbers that pop in your life, like I've had a couple weird ones in the last couple of weeks where 11, 11, 11. Like multiple times now I've looked at my watch if it's been in the evening or the morning of where it's been 11, 11, and 11 seconds. And like that's the moment I looked at my watch. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of weird. And it happened multiple. So I don't know if there's any correlation to that, but like you think about the Bible, like 40 days, that's a big one. There's a handful of other numbers of where it's like, that's used multiple times. Like what is the meaning behind that? But there's got to be, there's some deeper correlation to it, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is. I just haven't had gotta go do some research. Got the big book right behind me, so it's just gotta crack that thing open. Oh yeah. But no, as in terms of Jesus, I mean, why do you think he needed to go into the wilderness before he could start his ministry?
Yeah. I think with that, and I can't remember the entirety of like what it goes into detail of like what he was tempted with, but I think God's doing of bringing Jesus to the earth, making him man, making him human, and to the point of where he has free will, he has free choices. Obviously, he's a perfect being, but I think all of it was just preparation to get him ready for that next step in his journey and to prepare him for what was to come, to become, because it was that first kind of big test of going through and just basically putting the devil in his place, asserting himself above him, and then preparing him for his ministry to come from that. And that'd be a wild one. 40 days. That's not, that's once again, where we're talking just like Moses, 40 years. 40 days is still a long time too.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I mean, just thinking about the why behind it, I think, every temptation that the devil threw at him was trying to, short God's plan for him, prove yourself, feed yourself, and then, take all the power you could dream of without going up on the cross. And I don't think, the devil's powerless to God. And he knows that. And so I don't think he wasn't trying to question or, shortcome Jesus's ability to do those things. I think he was trying to question his obedience and trust in God. And I think that's probably a lot of what we go through too, in a sense of like all the little doubts in your head, all the little things that are maybe taking you down the wrong path. That's just the devil saying, I can get you to turn, I can get you to fall away. I can get you to not have that faith or that trust in God. And so how do you think identity attack, or not identity, how do you think temptation attacks our individual identities? How do you say that one more time?
How does temptation attack our identities?
Oof. That's a stumper. I think it questions, it makes you question yourself and who you are and what you think you deserve. Like the devil saying, well, if you are the son of God, he kept saying, he says that at each temptation. And so, temptation, I think, is trying to rush God's timing and rewrite his truth in a sense where, he's trying to put that, temptation is what it is. It's getting you to do things that you know are probably wrong or are wrong, but you're doing them anyways, and you know you shouldn't do them, but at the same time, like, those are those times where you're being tested by, you know, the devil, by and your faith is being put to the test. You know, it's you're going up against the devil in the Super Bowl. It's those times where, you know, your identity doesn't come from that. It comes from God, and
Amen.
You know, not the results.
Well, I was going to kind of go with it like that, where it's like God gave us our identity and our fingerprint that is unique to us. No one else has my fingerprint, you know, and God has a plan for me that he has. And I think we underestimate the devil a little bit to what he is, his ability and his cunningness that he has for us, because his whole goal for us is to change our identity and to blind us from who we really are. And that's where, to me, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think about that. Yeah, it's just like we struggle with it every day, but that's where it's like, that's why Jesus died for our sins, is that we can get that all back, you know?
Right.
And it's just, it's crazy to think, though, that God gave us free will and gave us this ability to choose who we want to be and how we want to be, but yet gave us this ability to that we can get so kiltered and off track that we can hit the reset button. It might take a long time to get back to where you were, because it's just like anything, you got to build that trust, but have that ability to just get back to who we really are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. And it doesn't get easier with age. If anything, it gets harder. You know, once you're out in the society, and you know, there's temptation every step you take.
I think the older we get to, we, you know, think of work, think of life, like, and just where we're at as a society from, you know, just convenience level. Like, we take shortcuts because it just makes our lives easier. Like, it makes, we think, yeah, like doing the hard thing is less appealing because it's hard and there's easier paths to go do that. But sometimes that's where, like, you know, what we've all been talking about, where it's like, God doesn't want us to take that path that is just straight and narrow, just a easy hike up the hill. He wants you to take that one that's going to take you through the turns and the mountains, and he's going to test your faith to know that, oh yeah, I've humbled myself and I've brought myself of the true me through that, you know?
Yeah. And even going back to David with the Psalms, like Psalm 23, you know, it's, even though I walk through the valley, it's not around it, it's not over it, it's through it. And, you know, you're going to go through what you go through, and you have every step you take, you have God at your side, you know, ready to, you know, catch you when you fall and pick you back up. And you just have to be, keep saying you have to be, like, I am good at it because I'm not, but, you know, you just have to be able to think it, you know, it's just, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this one, but you just have to be willing to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and do the hard things when they do show up, and you know, think about times where you do the shortcut or you do the easy way out, and then I think almost every time you do that, you have that nagging voice, and maybe it's God in the back of your head saying, you know, that's a shortcut, right? Like, you know that didn't make your life easier. You're just kicking the can a little bit further down the road. Eventually you're going to have to pick it up.
Yeah. And I think with that too, like, the thing that I've struggled with kind of throughout my whole life, of where, you know, it's like, you know, it's a sin to try to compare yourself to your neighbors and be zealous of what they have, and, you know, other people in life. But it's like, oh yeah, you know, those moments where you are walking through not the darkness, but you're taking that hard path, and then, you know, God's all knowing. God knows our thoughts before we think them. but then you go through and you have 2 good weeks, 3 good weeks. And then like I've been guilty of this where it's like, oh yeah, I've been pretty good. Like what's God going to reward me with now, And like, I will say God is if you ask God for things and you pray to God for things, he will answer your prayers in his own way of whatever that is. But he's not going to reward you for doing what he wants you to do and expecting to have a pot of gold at the other side of the rainbow. Like that defeats the whole purpose. Like I've struggled with that where it's like, okay, been pretty good. Like hopefully I kill a big deer now. Waiting.
Come on. No. Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen, but it's like, that's the moment of where it's all of a sudden, it usually takes me a day or two to like reflect on it and just like, oh wow. And then ask for forgiveness, where it's like, that was wrong of me.
So wrapping this up here, we talked about these 4 guys. We talked about Moses. We talked about David. We talked about Elijah. We talked about Jesus. So here's a little fun question to contemplate. What season are you in right now? Are you in the desert like Moses? Are you in the pasture like David, the cave like Elijah? Or are you being tested like Jesus?
I feel like I was kind of talking about it earlier right now. I kind of feel like I'm Moses right now. I just feel like that I'm in a place of where I feel like I'm in a good place with God, and I'm doing my best to be consistent and to be truthful to myself and to him. But I just feel like, I don't know if something's missing, something's needs to happen. I don't know what that is. Maybe I'm getting called to something that I just don't understand yet. But that's just kind of what I feel like right now. I feel like I'm kind of, how about you?
Depends on the day. Otherwise, I think for me and which one, but I think, and in that sense, it's probably a little bit of both or a little bit of all of them all at once. But I think if I had to pick, I think it'd be the cave a little bit right now anyways. Like, feeling pressure or on edge or misunderstood in a sense of just trying to figure out that next step in life or get through, what's going on right now, just getting, I think that's for me is like when you, like for the cave is like when you feel boxed in, like you're just in survival mode. You're not thriving necessarily maybe. And you may be doing the right things, but it's coming at a cost of like sanity some days. And it's, it's fear and frustration, that fear. And this is, like I said, I think you go through all 4 of these things at a certain time. But I think for me, it's like that fear or the frustration or the anger that's just sitting right underneath that surface. And so I think the cave is where is God's, shapes that, in that integrity or that trust. And when escaping the cave looks very tempting, you know what I mean?
And, I think with that too, and I mean, this is some of the cliff notes that you got in it, but I think it relates to that really well. I think in not our weakest moments, but maybe our weakest moments that's where God's working on you the most, man, making you a stronger person for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It ain't easy.
No,
Yeah.
It would be interesting, and it would not be as fulfilling. And I pray to God that someday when we both die, that we can high five one another up in heaven and see the old man and all of our other family and stuff, but get a pat on the back and job well done. But it's like, I don't think I would want it easy, where it's like to have something as good as that is to just be like, oh yeah, you're it. You made it. Good job. Yeah. You lived a shitty life, but yeah, you're here. Of compared to where it's like, I don't know what it's like. I've never been on my deathbed, but of where it's like, you think of a lot of older people where they have those reflections towards the end, I guess, of where it's like they reminisce a little bit of the things they wish and they could have done. But then again, it's like whatever their life gave them, I'm sure they would have wouldn't want to have changed it to have it easier. Whatever they did go through, to know that they did their best and they had forgiveness and they trusted in the Lord, and then hopefully, God willing, God rewards us all. But
yeah, I think, I mean, you're going to go through all 4 of these, scenarios or whatever you want to call them, but I think it's just, you have to try to remember that none of them mean that time is wasted. It's and none of them that mean that God has stepped away. Each one of these is shaping you in a sense, and yeah. It's fun. It's fun getting old.
It's fun. It's fun getting old. All right, let's end it with a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this night, for this opportunity to speak about you and speak about just your good word, dear Lord. And we just pray that you can help us be intentional with all of our prayers, that we can give you the glory, ask for you for forgiveness, and give you thanks. And we just pray that whatever season of life that we're going through, dear Lord, that you stand there with us and walk us through it, no matter the time, no matter the place, that you're with us through it all. And pray that we can have the ability to help others that are going through times as well, to bring them to you and the know and the trust in you, dear Lord, and just to give all the glory back to you. And thank you again for this night. And, thank you for all the people that listen to this podcast. And we pray that you can keep working through us to keep delivering your word, dear Lord. And we just give all the glory to you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, dude.
That was fun.
Yeah. Those are good ones. I like, a little bit of self-reflection, a little bit of, setting the course straight again as far as knowing or, trying to do better, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of fun. Like, I like when we do podcasts like this, and we've said this. I mean, now that we've done over 200 episodes, probably of where, we probably haven't done that many for these style of podcasts, but it's like,
right.
It's fun. It's funny because it usually takes us probably 20 minutes to get warmed up to where we can kind of intellectually get deep into our thoughts. Yeah. And we kind of get the good stuff to start coming out, because otherwise, I feel like the first 10 minutes is okay, how should I answer this? And then you start talking,
swing it. Yeah.
You start talking from the heart, and it's like, oh yeah, well, this is what I think, this is what I'm feeling.
Worked out.
It just makes you feel good when you get done.
Oh yeah. Amen, brother.
So cool, guys. Well, like I said, we're inching our way there. We're one more episode closer to the 100, and we will do something fun for that. Maybe we'll do a big giveaway. We're going to keep it a surprise till the week of. But thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.